What's up, everybody? Welcome to House Divided, Orange Bloods Live. I'm Jeff Ketchum. That's Chad Hastings. Do us a solid. Hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, get notifications. Just hit a bunch of buttons. We appreciate that. Jump into the Specs chat because we want the people at Specs to know that you love chatting there. And we'll take your super chats as well. We love money. We're whores for it. If you offer us a nickel, we'll try to turn it into a dime with our answers. But yes, in some super chats, we've got a lot of UT football conversation to get into. Chad, the show is brought to us every single day by the guys over at Texas Card House, and we love our partnership with the Card House. We also love our partnership with Rogue Shop, sponsor of the Overreaction Monday show, and one of our favorite partners just in general because we love the product. We love the people. They are Texas's home for legal CBD, THC, and so much more. Let's hope it stays that way. Ken Paxton. Sorry, Chad. I know, fingers crossed. But yeah, scan that QR code. Go shopping, guys. Just go to the website. Like I normally say go to Orange Bloods, but go to rogueshop.com and see what they've got. You'll dig it. I promise. Chad, yesterday, Steve Sarkisian met with the media. He gave some interesting insight, I think, into what he thinks about this team, what he thinks about this season, and some of the specifics, some of which connected to, I think, NIL, and that's been a conversation. I didn't see the modcast yesterday. How'd it go?
It went good. Went good. We had a little bit of a couple change-ups at once. Anwar was covering the Sark press availability. Jason Sukumel had to duck out, but we got Travis and Cody in there and had a good conversation about portal money and where it may end up going.
Well, and I think that we start there a little bit because Steve Sarkisian mentioned yesterday, and I'll just read you the quote. It says, quote, we're really trying to identify the portal. And the question was, did Sark anticipate being active in the portal?
Mm-hmm.
He said, quote, we really try to identify the portal to where we think there's a need, but yet also is the person we're bringing in an upgrade to maybe what we've had, or can it supplement what we have at certain positions? Naturally, there's a couple of positions depth-wise we're not where we need to be right now, so we'll look at the portal that way. Our numbers are down at wide receiver right now. From a scholarship standpoint, our numbers are down on the defensive line from where our numbers really should be, and our numbers are really down at tight end. It's not a secret that we'll look at the portal, but I don't want to take a guy just for a number. If you're going to go into the portal, can he help that room play at a higher level? We'll have to assess it. It's free agency, I like to say, but they have to opt into free agency. So it's not like you can just say, hey, we need a defensive tackle. Let's go get a really good one. If they're available, sure, we'll try to. But that doesn't mean that caliber of players will be available to us, end quote. So, I think a lot of that was no duh, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's I think what you would anticipate transparency to look like, which is, yeah, we've got needs. We need guys, though, that can help us. We can't just take guys to take guys. And we also can't force guys into the portal. That being said, to specifically mention wide receiver first, which shouldn't be a shock, we've literally been talking about how the players in that room have been told they're going to go into the portal. And yet there are still people who are arguing with us about that. Esron, shame on you. Defensive line, he didn't say tackle and end necessarily. He just said defensive line. Although I think he's, I suppose if the right guy came along at either of those positions, we've seen that they've had interest at the defensive tackle position, and they've looked at some edge guys. So maybe not David Bailey, but maybe somebody else they might take a look at there. And then, quote, our numbers are really down at tight end, end quote.
Yeah. Really down. That was an interesting way to phrase that. He could have just mentioned tight end, but really down.
Well, because he said the numbers are down at receiver. Our numbers are down on the defensive line. Our numbers are really down at tight end.
Really down. Yeah.
I think, boy, I wonder. Here's what I hope doesn't happen, Chad. I hope we don't spend the next 8 months, 9 months talking about Max Clare.
I knew you were about to say his name. I knew it. Because it's not like you get to ease into that situation where Ohio State hosts Akron, and Texas will host Sam, and then maybe you see it's the first damn game. It's 140 something days away from right now, and he's on the field theoretically, and Yeah, if he makes 2 or 3 big catches and a touchdown and you lose it by 1 score, we're going to have to talk about it.
Well, and the guy they really feel like, hey, Jordan Washington is a guy that we think can fill a big void in our tight end. I mean, he's missing a big chunk of the spring with a shoulder injury.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't care this is not optimal for Arch, that potentially two of his starting 3 wide receivers and his starting tight end aren't participating in the spring. It's only because his last name is Arch Manning that we're not panicking a little bit over the fact that
you're right.
All of these practices, the spring is designed to give someone like Arch Manning 15 practices to work with the guys that he'll be throwing pitch and catch to during the season. It's not there. It says a lot about Arch Manning that everybody's kind of like, we're good. We're good. In fact,
yeah,
the way Arch gets talked about, they're just not tripping out. You know, Sarkisian talks about the guys that they're missing, and they're like, we'll make it work. It'll be all right.
Well, and he also knows, deep down, he knows what those injuries are. So far, all the reports are there, none of them are serious injuries. And we're coming up on when that summertime period gets here, when the Vince Young meet me at 6 a.m. if you want to beat Ohio State vibe comes around. It's just going to be so important if they can get those 3 back healthy, and you've got Arch, Moore, Wingo, Washington, everybody is out, up early in the morning and developing what they need to develop. The summer stuff just becomes even more critical.
Except
assuming they're ready to go. Assuming they're ready.
I think those guys will be, although it's April with Wingo. I mean, you figure he's out all of April, really, with the hamstring, Mm-hmm. I mean, you wouldn't want to. So the thing you don't want to do, though, is, and they'll get into finals and they'll take a few weeks off. So he should have all of the rest that he needs. However, we've all watched the hamstring game over the years in sports. That will be an injury. Even more, and the Achilles is one of those as well, right? Where it's like, look, whatever you do, don't set that back. So, if they can get Ryan Wingo through the summer and there have been no setbacks with the hamstring and he's fully healed, then it shouldn't be an issue. The thing that would concern you is if that nags at all, then suddenly with that particular injury, it kind of chews up 2 months at a time, 6 to 8 weeks. So, you just cry. And sometimes guys will come back, but they're never all the way back. They're always kind of not at 100%, not wanting that injury to go. But in general, I'm there. I think the interesting thing is that Sarkisian continues to talk about the running back room in a way. Now, look, and for those of you that wonder, this is on the title of the thumbnail. He didn't mention running back as one of those positions where he didn't mention it with receiver and defensive line and tight end. Now, I think it says something about those positions that during the spring he is so transparently open about, we need help there. I do think there are certain positions that they will look to, but it might be a case of they need somebody out before one can come in. For instance, he didn't mention kicker, but they got 2 on scholarship and nobody has any confidence really in either of them. And so the moment one of those guys were to move out, I think you'd see him then go, well, we lost a kicker, so we need to replace that. So I think there's some of that.
Right. But we can also understand how kicker wouldn't have come out in that answer, right? We all get why you wouldn't specifically say that in that answer.
I mean, I guess.
I wouldn't. I would.
He answered that question in terms of numbers. Yeah. And that's the only prism through which he answered what they might look to do. He only spoke about numbers. He didn't really speak about quality of need, but there's a sense that the running back position is one that he's happy or optimistic with. And man, I don't want to beat this drum every day, all throughout the spring and during the summer, but I don't think it's a running back position that's as good as it was a year ago. they haven't replaced the big play pop that Jaden Blue brought to the table.
Mm-hmm.
And, fourth quarter against Ohio State, protecting a 4-point lead. I don't know that I definitely know who's playing running back. I don't.
Yeah.
And you can tell me that, well, it's going to be Quantravius Wisener. It's like, well, is it? Because I don't know that what we saw towards the end of the season with him in big games, A&M notwithstanding, like, is he closing that game out? Can anybody say that Jarrett Gibson or CJ Baxter, who's not even back yet? Like, I think there's a little bit less known quality there than Sark is perhaps indicating, although there's no getting around the fact that Jarrett Gibson has game time. Wisener, clearly a 1,000-yard running back in 16 games a year ago. They're optimistic that Christian Clark is going to have an impact. You know what I mean? It's not that they feel like they're devoid of talent. But do they have a guy that wins you games in Athens, in Gainesville, in Columbus? And I think some real fan bias confirmation has to kick in for you to think that position's just good to go.
Yeah, it is wild. And looking at the numbers, Catch, and I know you brought this up, back to the Ohio State game, 2.7 yards per carry for Wisener and 1 carry for nothing for Gibson. That's what they did in the semifinal. Wisener, 2.7 SEC championship game, 2.5 against Arizona State, a game where we thought Texas should have controlled the line of scrimmage and should have run on the Sun Devils. And that's the thing that just didn't happen. So I don't know.
And this offensive line, that's the other thing. The offensive line's not as good as it was a year ago. So I don't know how.
Right.
The default answer on this, Chad, is that, well, Arch and the passing game are going to be so good that the running game will open up because of Arch. And it's like the amount of pressure that's being put on Arch Manning right now is, well, Arch will, not can, not we hope, Arch will compensate for the decline in the running back position, the decline in the wide receiver room, the decline in the tight end room, and the decline in the offensive line. He'll account for all of that. And it's like, okay, but you realize, like, he's not replacing Quinn Ewers and playing with all of the guys that played last season. He's missing the best guys from an offense that struggled to score 20 points a game in the biggest games of last season. So I don't know. Like, I'm not a Debbie Downer. That's the thing. I think this is a playoff caliber team. It goes back to the conversation that we're having. The bar is, in the last 2 games of the season, national semifinals and a national final, are you constructed to beat Georgia, Ohio State, or somebody of that ilk in the final games of the season? It's hard to say that right now. It's not hard for me to say this team's one of the 12 best teams in college football and that they will make a playoff. The conversation isn't, can they beat Oklahoma? Can they beat Texas A&M? Can they beat Arkansas? It's in games that aren't even on the schedule yet. Can they win those games? And forgive me, the jury is out on that just a little bit.
Well, and the other thing, I mean, it's like you said, the biggest games of the year blink at you, the 3 big road games. Can you win 2 out of those 3 at least? And obviously you're going to need a running game to do that at some point. The wild part, somebody in the chat brought up an interesting point of like, okay, but are you how could you guarantee they're going to get that running back in the portal? You can't. And that you
and they might not.
Right. And you read Sark's quote. The interesting part of it, he's dead on. It is the free agency of college football, but it feels so different because they determine. Like, what if in the NFL you determined when you became a free agent instead of the team and the contracts determining it? So we don't know that part. And we absolutely, and we don't know it at defensive line, and we don't know it at tight end, and we don't know it at wide receiver. But to the point that you're making here, Catch, he did bring those things up. It is noteworthy because you've got the injury to Baxter, you've got the injury to Clark, you've got Blue exiting, And somebody in the chat said, what do you mean? Have they yet to replace Blue? He just left. Yeah, he did, but they got to figure that out. All that is true. And he still didn't say the numbers were down or didn't discuss that room specifically. He's got confidence, man, because he knows he's got another 1,000-yard back catch. It's just what he does.
No,
the 1,000-yard back lives.
I think he knows that he has a need, but I think there are some positions you can't say that out loud.
Okay.
And I think what they're doing right now for every running back in that room is dangling a carrot in front of them. And they're saying, look, Baxter's not back. Clark's not all the way back. This is your chance. And if you take it, you could be the starter next year. You're going to be in the rotation. You're going to get a lot of playing time. I don't think they want to convey right now publicly that they know. Like, some of this is goddamn common sense. It's why when fans in the Specs chat want to argue with us about it, it's like, guys, come on. Because everything that Sark just said about those other positions, we've been saying, and we get pushback on those as well. It's like, no, we don't need wide receivers. Nick Townsend's coming in the summer. Tight end's taken care of. And it's like, guys, the bar that we're talking about, again, is different than the bar that we've ever talked about in the past. The bar has always been Oklahoma. In a way, last year, the bar was an imaginary median SEC team, right? It was, can you go into the SEC and be ready to compete? It was more of a rhetorical question than anything else, but that got answered. That won't be a question in year two. But the question will be, is Texas ready to beat Georgia? Is Texas ready to win the most difficult games on the schedule? That's the only thing, that's the only place my thought process goes. There have been people in the last 24 hours who said, bring back Savion Red because he entered the portal after having a solid season at Nevada a year ago. And it's like, the last time we saw Savion Red, he was overweight, kind of just played himself out of practice and left for the portal. He's a good player, but does he help you beat Georgia? And I think that's what Sark was getting at is, look, just because there are names in the portal, are those guys even better than the guys that we have? And it is the $1 million question that they'll ask of everybody who's in the portal, because if the answer is a yes, then you have to be interested in that player almost regardless of the position. Can we upgrade, find margins in select spots? But I think at running back, I think they know. And I don't think there's a lot of those positions that are out there. I think deep down, they thinking about the offensive line as well. We saw them go after Emmanuel Pregnon from USC, who eventually signs with Oregon. We know that if the right offensive lineman became available, that they would not only be interested, but go in with some real cash. Mm-hmm. So, I think there are things that he didn't say the quiet part out loud, but I think the same thing about the offensive line. They want, before they go into the portal, they want to be able to tell every single one of those kids, we gave you every opportunity. And I think they're telling them that now. We are committed to you guys. But if the spring ends and you haven't done enough, then we'll have to reconsider where we are. But right now, we're not even thinking about the portal. We believe in you guys. Make us, give us, pay back that faith, reward us. And I think at the end of the year, at the end of the spring, no matter what the position is, they'll then be able to say, you had 15 practices. You didn't show us enough for us to not feel like we needed to go do something. And so I don't think they want to say that. They don't want that coming out now at those positions, because those guys right now are being driven by the idea that they've got something to play for. And the moment that you probably say portal at those positions, I think young guys are going, huh? I think everybody kind of goes, huh? Because if you're third, that means you're fourth. And if you're fourth, that means you're fifth. And if you're second, that might mean you're third. And the dynamics of all of that are very tricky. And I think, why would you scream fire in a crowded theater right now? I'm almost a little surprised that he mentioned those three positions the way that he did. It really speaks to they have needs at those positions. If Sark's willing to come out and say it now, yep, it's so damn obvious that saying otherwise is just I think he would realize people will see through that. Plus, we're telling guys, anybody that we actually want the word out. Somebody signal the bat signal, right? Let wide receivers know, hey, if you come into the portal,
that's it. All right. We did get a super chat in from Tracy while we were talking. Let's go $10 super chat from Tracy. I would like to give a shout out to GK for getting skinny on us. Keep it up. Freshman that will have the biggest impact, not named Justice Terry, and the biggest storyline going into the summer, not named Arch.
I think the biggest storyline going into the summer, Tracy, is just going to be replacing the offense. So many questions. And so many of the potential answers are just unavailable this spring. I don't even know how to talk about the offense in its current state. I think in terms of the freshmen that will have, by the way, good questions, and thank you for the $10. I think one of those freshman wide receivers will emerge as a real contributor. It could be McCutcheon. Although we know that DeAndre Moore is going to come back and beat the guy in the slot. So there's a little bit of fool's gold there with McCutcheon. It could be French. It could be any of those guys. Although I think McCutcheon and French right now are probably the two guys that early on, if you had to pick one of those two, if you had to pick somebody to be an impact freshman, I think it might be there. I don't think it's at running back. It's real interesting. You know, he still is talking about the two incoming true freshman running backs as freshman running backs. He's not talking about them in the Gibson competing with, not even in the Christian Clark territory. It very much feels like they are at the back end of the depth chart. Offensive line, yeah. I mean, tight end, if Nick Townsend comes in, you know, Amari Watson is getting snaps right now, but he's getting that based off of what Sark described as really down numbers at tight end. And the reason why they're really down is not everybody that they have on scholarships even good enough to play at this level. It's one thing to have 4 scholarship tight ends. It's another thing to have 1 or 2 of the 4 that you really feel like you can play with. And the other guys are taking up space may feel unfair because some of these guys are young and not even expected to be on the field at this point. But, you know, Spencer Shannon and Will Randall can't play at this level. They are taking roster space because it's so hard. Again, the conversation isn't, and look, maybe you could say, can these guys help us beat Vanderbilt? At which point there's a role. But one of the things they had to ask themselves last season was, can Juan Davis help us beat Georgia? Can Juan Davis help us beat Ohio State? And that's Juan Davis caught the first pass of the game against Ohio State.
Yeah, for a gain, as I recall. Decent gain?
Yeah, it was a gain.
Gained yardage?
It gained yardage. But, you know, we weren't even sure about that at this point last year. And you know what? They were right about that gamble. But they also missed on some gambles. That's why they call them gambles instead of sure things. We don't say, well, they hit on that sure thing with Juan Davis.
Tracy, thank you for the $10 super chat. Real quick, Catch, do you let Tej get away with this? Livingstone redshirt freshman, right?
I mean, I think Livingstone's going to be a contributor.
So that would qualify. If you're asking for a freshman, the red shirts count too, right? In terms of a guy.
I was talking about the 4 true freshman wide receivers.
Okay.
And I don't think Tracy was asking about redshirt freshmen.
Right. Tej, I get what you're doing. I think Tracy was asking about the true freshman, but I like your idea. I like it.
But look, I think Livingstone's going to be a contributor this year. Is he going to be a key contributor? What is key? Is he going to be a number 1 receiver, has over 1,000 yards and 10 touchdowns? No, I don't think that. Is he a guy that can catch 30 passes for 400 or 500 yards? Maybe. And is there anything wrong with that? Like, that's a good redshirt freshman season.
Yeah, absolutely. Oh, if you can get up into that area, what last year, let's see, Wingo and Moore, one was at 39 catches, one was at 29. If you can be that, you can be that guy. If Livingstone can live somewhere around 30, that's a good number.
It's a good redshirt freshman season.
Absolutely.
And it puts you in a position where next year, because this is what I've always said about Livingstone. It's like, well, look, in a year from now, I fully expect him to be a guy that has a chance to start and be a starting level player on the kind of team that we're talking about, which is a team that can beat Georgia, a team that can beat Ohio State. And, you know, so like it's not an insult to say that Parker Livingstone is going to have a really good season this year. And then we'll build off of that and then be better and more dynamic in a year from now when he's a third-year sophomore. That's where I am with Livingstone. And it weirdly has been positioned as a bit of a hot take. But, you know, I feel like that is the most realistic version of the year that Parker Livingstone is going to have. And if, quite frankly, if they thought otherwise, I don't know that they're talking about receiver needs as much as he was talking about him yesterday. First position out of his mouth.
Yep, probably right. First thing he said. We're talking about the Sark presser yesterday, some of the things that came out of it. If you have a super chat, jump in. We're crawling up towards 400 people in the Specs chat. Let's also thank some of our great partners, and this one's got great taste written all over it. It's Taste on Main. Here's an idea for you, because we are in that time of the year. Might be prom time for your kids, or you may just be one of those parents that's sick about hearing about prom. So either way, if you're looking for a place for the kids to go and the prom is down south of Austin, Taste on Main, downtown Buda, not a bad idea. Great steakhouse. I always say there's no stuffy dress code, but that doesn't mean they're not going to let you in if you're a badass tuxedo or a badass prom dress. They'll let you in there for that too. The steaks are incredible. The drinks are awesome. The bar areas are great. For you parents, if you want to hit the brunch on Saturday or Sunday just to decompress for prom or whatever's going on, graduation prep and everything that's going on right now, it's a great place for that too. And then you're in downtown Buda. My wife and I usually just finish up the meal, walk around Buda a little bit, hit some antique stores, always have a great time. The desserts are awesome at Taste on Main. Remember, these are the people that bring you Hayes City store. So if you've been out there to the place in Driftwood, this is downtown Buda, and the same quality exists. It's just a badass steakhouse in downtown Buda. Check them out. Taste on Main. Tell Travis and the crew we said hey here at Orange Bloods Live. All right. Rolling through. Yes, sir.
Can you hold down the fort for 30 seconds?
I can hold down the fort for 30 seconds. Yes.
Okay. Well, take me off screen.
Okay. Holding down the fort for 30 seconds. Things to do for Jeff Ketchum. Thank you all for jumping in. If you want to throw a super chat in, it'll go right to the top of the list. We're talking about Sark's presser yesterday. The fact that he mentioned those three positions are certainly noteworthy. I was a little surprised defensive line came out of his mouth. Not surprised he said receiver. I'm not surprised he said tight end. I am a little surprised he said D-line. I want to definitely talk to Ketch about that. You guys want to throw in chats, feel free. Sailor Joe jumps in, says, I really believe Sark will do it again where he finds a wide receiver at a smaller school performing at a 5-star level, and he will walk away with another gem. Sailor Joe, I think that question is, is it a gem singular, or are there gems? Is it more than one of those? That'll be an interesting thing to find out. All right, I think Ketch is good here. We ready to roll?
Can I tell you what I would do?
Sure.
I will get my NIL people together. Here's what I'll do, Chad. You tell me, what number moves the needle for a badass wide receiver? Just in general, if you were a badass wide receiver and you're happy, you're getting paid, you're happy. You may not be like, what though would make you, Is there anything?
$1 million?
Yeah. I would go, I'll give you an example of what I would do. I would reach out my little intermediaries for Sarkisian.
Mm-hmm.
I would reach out to a guy like Bryant Wesco Jr. at Clemson. And I would just say, just so you know, we'll pay you 1.7.
Oof.
And then And I would tell every single one of those kids, I'd tell every Bryant Wesco that's out there, you don't have to enter the portal, but, we don't even care what you're making. It's really immaterial to us. You aren't making 1.7. And if you enter the portal, that's what we'll pay you. We'll give you Colin Simmons money. We'll give you Anthony Hill money. And you know what? How different does the Texas passing attack look with a guy like Bryant Wesco as Arch Manning's number one receiver?
Yeah. No, it's like adding a.
And real quick, Chad, guys, that's what I'm talking about. The difference. You guys are talking about Parker Livingstone. I'm talking about Bryant Wesco. And that's what Texas had a year ago. They had Wescos. And that's what they'll need this season, not anything less than that. They're not winning a national championship with anything less than that. And so, am I tampering? What is tampering? I know this. Every lawyer of every agent of every badass receiver in college football will know we have a spot, maybe two, where we will pay top dollar.
Well, you've said the words intermediaries and you've said the word agents. We've also talked about the fact that it can be players. It can be players. It can be high school coaches. It can be parents. There's a lot of ways you can communicate that information.
In 2025, it needs to be the agent.
There's a lot. It probably needs to be. You're right. Ultimately, it does. But you could start that conversation a lot of different ways. You could gauge that interest a lot of different ways. And
you're going to get somebody that'll bite on that hook. I promise you.
Yeah. And the reminder I would give everybody, Catch, that's, whether it's S. Roan just trying, maybe he's just trying to stir it up, whether it's somebody else that agrees with the idea of, maybe you don't deal with the wide receiver thing. It's like, y'all are Texas, man. Think about what this season is. Think about what's on the line. Even if the two guys were completely healthy, totally, even if Moore and Wingo hadn't missed a rep, the discussion's still kind of the same.
Of course.
It's still kind of the same thing. Do you need 3? Probably not. Probably not. Do you need 2? That might be a little aggressive. But do you need none? That's all. I mean,
and not even Sark is saying that. Even Sark is like
that. And that's the thing, Catch. That's a great clarification we are making in this show today. For everyone like Esserone that was thinking, I hope they don't get in the portal for a receiver, Sark just told you clearly that is not his intent.
Our numbers are down.
Our numbers are down at this position.
And the last thing they want to do in one of their 2 seasons with Arch Manning, and look, we say 2, I 95% believe it will be 2.
Yeah.
But we all can't be so naive as to believe that if he were fantastic this year and looked like the number 1 pick in the draft, that they wouldn't at least have to have a conversation.
Yeah. And I'm going to be the one to keep saying 1 more year before they switch the schedule on you.
Yeah.
We have no clue what it means. Catch, I'm going to say this again and again. At Knoxville, at Oxford. If you think the SEC is not thinking about that for Arch Manning in year 2, I think you're crazy. They're going to send him to the Grove, and they are going to send him to Knoxville.
God, you're so right. They're definitely doing that.
I can almost guarantee you, and if they're really sick, the math would tell you they could add College Station and Fayetteville to that.
They probably would. That would be 4. It'd be 4 of your road games.
Especially if they go to 9 conference games. That's off in the future. So that's the other thing about 2025 that I'll keep mentioning. This is the year where you're playing 1 of the best 8 teams from last year, and OU's playing 7 of those 8.
Well, look,
that is happening this time.
When they got Matthew Golden a year ago, they thought they were getting multiple years out of Golden. They did not think.
That's true.
I think they thought this guy will be a high-level NFL prospect. But I don't even think in the midway point of this season they thought, oh, this guy's just going to have to go because he's going to go in the top 30 picks. Make a move on a guy like Bryant Wesco and you're getting him for 2 years. So really what you're talking about is somewhere between $3.5 and $4 million for 2 years. Best money Texas could spend. I can't get on the box. That guy's going to be a first-round draft pick in the NFL. And then what you get to tell yourself is for both of Arch Manning's seasons at Texas, he's got his number one guy. I'm singling out Bryant Wesco because he's a name that everybody saw. We all go back with him to high school when he was a prospect. I'm not saying he's the guy as if I know anything and that's what they're going to do. I'm just using him as an example. Yeah. Ryan Williams. Hey, make Alabama pay that kid $2 million.
I was going to say with Williams, it's going to need to go to 2.
But make him. Right. Because you may be buying a Heisman Trophy winner at that point.
Yeah. And by the way, I just had to look it up because I kept hearing you say the name. Wesco, for those that are like me, the kid at Clemson that's from Midlothian that played at Clemson. That's who he is. I knew the name. I just couldn't remember. I couldn't see a jersey in my head. But that's a wild idea because he was, freshman or redshirt freshman last year?
True freshman.
True,
averaged 17 yards a catch.
Oh, he was a badass.
Over 1,700 yards. In the playoff game against SMU, he was 8 for 143 and 2. Yeah. Against South Carolina, he was 5 for 67. There's a whole lot of games where every week, his production is very similar to Silas Bolden's from the year before, where it's a lot of his, there's an occasional 1 for 17 against the Virginia Tech, but there's a whole lot of 67, 75, 61, 3 games of over 100 yards. Like this is a guy that's just starting to scratch the surface of who he can be. And, and I'm not even saying he's the guy. I'm saying too many Texas fans are like, well, who in the hell is even going to be in the portal in the spring? And will they be good enough to play for Texas? Make them good enough. You're Texas. Right. In 2025, we see this level of portal manipulation all the time. Guys go into the portal. They put do not disturb tags when they go into the portal. And then they end up with big teams. And it's like, guys, that was done. That was done like Adonai Mitchell was done to Texas before the Georgia season even ended a couple of years ago.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
they were playing in a national championship game, and everybody knew that Adonai Mitchell was leaving for Texas as soon as that game ended. So what I'm saying is do whatever you guys did with Adonai Mitchell, do that again because that worked.
Yeah. And if you did it with a guy like Wesco, you'd be testing the whole Dabo Swinney NIL portal discussion because we know he's been slow to react. He's getting there, but he's been slow to react so far, Catch. I do wonder what happens if a badass of his comes to him with a retention discussion, a retention demand. What does Dabo do? Does he just say, you're not one of our guys, get out?
Because I guarantee you, here's what's happened. Wesco got an improved NIL deal in the offseason. But these deals carry no real legal weight or parameters.
Right. He is allowed to get into this portal on the 16th if he wants to.
There's no such thing as pay for play. So he's not obligated to play at this. Like, he can get out. And it is... This happened allegedly with Xavier Worthy 2 seasons ago, going into his sophomore season. They had reached what I understand of the situation is that they had reached a deal for him NIL wise, and someone close to him. This is just allegedly because I can't prove any of this. It's what I heard from multiple people. Xavier's name got put into the portal. And Texas officials were like, wait, what? What? We're literally yesterday. We have a deal. We have an NIL deal. And it was like, well, not everybody thinks so. And then they had 2 days to massage that relationship so that Xavier Worthy would come out of the portal, which is exactly what I was told allegedly happened. Allegedly. I promise I wouldn't be telling you this story with specific names if I didn't think it happened. And my understanding is that in the end, that worked, though. That they ended up, you know what? That deal wasn't final, but it got final. And you know how it got final? As it turns out, applying that extra little bit of pressure didn't come without its reward. And so what you want Texas to do with one of these guys, Dabo will know that Wesco's making a mill, right?
Mm-hmm.
Make him turn down 1.7. Make him go into Dabo's office and go, Texas is offering me $2 million, almost $4 million for the next 2 years.
Mm-hmm.
Coach, I can't. You're not turning down millions of dollars to coach here, are you? And if he gets huffy and puffy about it, you've made this easy. You've made it easy.
Yeah. Plus,
And
it's even.
and you do that with 5 guys. You do it with all of them, and it's like first guy in gets paid. Second guy in, we told you to be first.
Yeah. Plus, it's even easier catch because at that point, even if he gets mad, there's a slide that gets you out of the building. You don't even have to go downstairs. They put a slide in a couple years ago at
You don't have to
Clemson.
wait for the elevator. Like that's
Whoop. Fancy. They might have put in a ball pit by now. I don't know.
So again, I think Texas fans at situations like this are viewing this wrong. They're looking at it like, well, who are the unhappy guys who were at, you don't sit around and wait in 2025. You don't.
Yeah. Catch, we missed a super chat earlier. Let me squeeze it in here. Barb's 10 with a $5 super chat. Thank you, Barb's. Why no Manning effect at wide receiver or tight end? Props Sailor Joe for mentioning first. Any feelers out there, or are they just ice cold? Well, maybe we're about to see a little bit of that too, Barb's 10.
Well, I mean, Barb's, I know what you were saying because we haven't exactly had, when Chris Sims signed with Texas, Roy Williams and BJ Johnson and Sloan Thomas, they all very publicly were open about part of the decision was they wanted to go play with Chris Sims.
Mm-hmm.
I think NIL has changed this.
Yeah, I haven't heard a whole lot of that. It's an interesting point Barb's is bringing up.
Because it didn't even happen last year with Bryce Underwood when he was at LSU. Think about when DeCorian Moore makes his visit to Austin. And he was asked, because Texas had a commitment from KJ Lacey and LSU had a commitment from Bryce Underwood. They asked DeCorian Moore, was it important that in the recruiting class that you go into, is there a big-time quarterback? Like, how important is it? Because both of those schools that were thought to be his 2 leaders, one that he was committed to, the other thought to be the school most dangerous to steal his commitment. And DeCorian Moore said that day, I'm a lot more concerned about who the starter is when I'm there. Mm-hmm. And if that's one of those guys, then great, but it might not be. So I need to be focused on who the starter is going to be. So maybe we would see a little bit of that in the portal. Again, Texas not overtly aggressive in the portal. Because had they been, I know someone mentioned that Claire was a guy that was from Ohio and maybe he ends up at Ohio State anyway. Maybe. But you got to make him make a decision, and I don't think Texas ever made him really make a decision. Just like make Brian Wesco make a decision. If you get to August 1st and were not able to lure a big-time wide receiver into the portal with your money and your quarterback positioning and all of that. And by the way, keep that up, Chad, because I wanted to say one more thing about Barb's point. Then the one thing you don't want to have is regret over inaction. Get to August 1st and go, God, you know what I wish we had done? Ask Ryan Williams if he'd take our $2 million. Ask Bryant Wesco if he'd take ours. Ask any of these dudes. Hell, pick anybody that's not on an SEC team because you can't do that. But hell, go make Ohio State pay Jeremiah Smith half the national debt. I mean, what you don't want to do is have regret that in one of your Arch Manning seasons, you didn't do enough. And you put your head on a pillow at night thinking to yourself, you know what? We didn't get the job done and there was more we could have tried and we didn't. If it doesn't happen, it can't be because you didn't try something. And I'm all about try, bitches. Try like your life depends on it.
It's what Ohio State did last year.
And they made improvements at positions that people thought they didn't necessarily need to make position upgrades in.
Right. How about that running back room they put together? Good grief. Like they did not need to do that.
And those two guys it didn't seem like week in and week out, both of those guys had big games together every week, but it felt like one of them did in every game.
Yeah. But yeah, you watch them go through the season and it just felt like a hard punching boxer when it came to that running back room. One of them was going to hit you in the mouth every week. It was brutal. You said you wanted to hit something else on this?
Oh, I was just going to say, I think Texas signed the best wide receiver class in the country last year. I don't think it was because of the Arch Manning effect, but Khalil Lockett and Jamie French were 5-stars, and French is a 5-star from out of state. You throw in Michael Terry, you throw in Dalen McCutcheon. It's a pretty incredible it's one of the best wide receiver classes in the history of the school. So Manning's got to get a little bit of credit. I mean, it's literally the wide receiver class right before he becomes the starting quarterback. So I say he's not hurting recruiting. And tight end, they did get Nick Townsend. They did sign Amari Winston. Michael Terry was thought to be a guy that could maybe contribute at that position, H-back-ish, something like that as well. So, it wasn't like receiver and tight end last year in recruiting were duds. They were really good classes. But I do feel you, Barbs. I just think that the dynamics of 2025 aren't the same as when Vince Young was here and when Chris Sims were here.
Barbs, as always, thank you for the super chats. Thanks to everybody that jumps in with a super chat. We will definitely take those. Climbing up towards 500 folks in the Specs chat. Before we get these other good chats, let's hear from Specs, a great Texas company. Here's Lisa.
As a Texas family-owned business, we know you don't mess with Texas. And you won't find more ways to raise a glass of Texas-made cheer than right here. So whatever you're planning, we're ready to get you ready. Because at Specs, the fun starts here.
All right, let's clean off a couple of chats here. I did like this one. JD says, get Lambo to give someone Taft's former car. Yeah, that could happen. It could work. Now this one,
I think his own. He does not need.
Do whatever you need to do. Do whatever you need to do. Sailor Joe says, do you think we would see the Manning effect had we had a spring game? Sailor Joe, remember when that spring game would have occurred. The spring game would have occurred right as the portal is closing. So no, I would argue, I get what you're saying. You're thinking balls fly in the air and it looks awesome in a spring game. And then all these dudes watch it. And the next couple of days they get in the portal. They wouldn't have the time to do it. The portal closes on a Friday. The spring game would have occurred on a Saturday. The very next, they'd had to move it back to one of these next couple weekends. So not quite going to work that way, but I get the question. And a quick shout out to James and Hayes City Store. He said he had a bacon jam burger 2 weeks ago. So damn good from Hayes City Store. The burgers are great out there, James. You are absolutely right. Shout out to Hayes City Store for that. Shout out to you guys jumping in the chat. If you want to get in, if you want to send us a super chat, it'll go right to the top. Catch, I made the comment earlier when you ducked out for a sec, but give me your thoughts on the fact that Sark mentioned defensive line. I was not surprised he said wide receiver. I was not surprised he said tight end. Mildly surprised he brought up defensive line. Did that make sense to you?
Well, sure. They've got 14 defensive linemen in total on the roster, including 6 true freshmen or 5 true freshmen. So, they've got here at defensive end, they've got 1 senior and 0 juniors, 2 sophomores and 3 freshmen. So, I mean, yeah, defensive end, especially when you move Trey Moore over to linebacker. Mm-hmm. And we could quibble about whether or not, but you look at that, your non-freshmen at defensive end are Ethan Burke, Colton Vasek, and Colin Simmons. Now, that's a good trio, but Vasek's coming off of an injury, and some would say always injured. And then you've got Burke and Simmons. And so while you've got really talented young guys in Zena Yamuzalo, Lance Jackson, Smith Arogbo back there, I can see where, and we've seen them look at end. They didn't bring David Bailey in because there was just no need or interest in an end. And I think you look at the defensive tackle position, if they don't bring in more, they're going to be in the same position next year that they were this year and last year, which is, Cole Brevard and Travis Shaw will be gone.
Right. He wants to not always need to get those D tackles every year.
Hero Canoe could be a one and done guy in theory. Maybe that's, you know what I mean? Like,
yeah, because and maybe I'm looking at it, I guess, too simplistically, because I'm thinking of the three guys you just mentioned. I was like, well, they did that, and I know they lose Collins and Broughton, but, they're replacing them just like they did last year. In my mind, it sort of evens out, but obviously in Sark's mind, he's looking at the full list of what you just mentioned.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think in the instant, if the right guy comes along, I think at defensive end, you might be saying to yourself, we don't need a 2 or 3 year guy because Lance Jackson and Zena Yamuzalo and Smith, those guys are going to grow up and we don't want to stunt their growth. So you're probably looking for a senior, an upperclassman that could come in at defensive end. Maybe push Ethan Burke to start, but really more of we know Colin Simmons is starting. And I think at defensive tackle, I think they feel like they're really good. I don't think they feel like they have a great player. So if those guys are hard to find, I think they probably feel like they're one defensive tackle. And when you think about Myron Charles, Josiah Sharma, and Justice Terry, none of those guys early on have flashed in such a way where it's like they're definitely going to contribute in year one at again, think about what I keep saying the bar is. It's not about playing games in September. It's do they think in the biggest games of the season against the biggest opponents, they have enough guys? I think they probably feel like we could use one more because I think they'd like to be 5. I think they'd like to have 5 in the interior every year.
Yeah.
And that 5th guy can be Trill Carter or Tia Savea or, Bill Norton or somebody like that. But it's good to have a 5th. If you're dropping from Alfred Collins and Vernon Broughton down to Bill Norton, that's your drop-off level. You can live with that. But imagine a world where that Bill Norton drops down to maybe Trill Carter. Because I think Bill Norton was an upgrade of Trill Carter. And suddenly Trill Carter is playing a lot of snaps against Georgia and Ohio State. And is he being productive at all? They've got to find a way to find guys that in those matchups make you better. Or at least if they're on the field, don't make you worse. So when they go portal shopping, it's not as simple as, does this guy fill a void? Let's bring him in. They don't want to get saddled with a guy for multiple years if he's not going to be a guy that's an impact player. So you can survive taking and the running back last year from SMU is a perfect example. You take Velton Gardner, he got hurt. He didn't even suit up.
Right.
But he was a grad senior. Like he counted for just a couple of months on the scholarship board and then he was gone. You might, but I think at defensive tackle, I think they'd take a non-senior if the right guy became available. Not so sure about defensive end. That a grad senior might, or someone who they think will either go pro or just play one more year might make sense because you do have so many guys coming up through the pipeline that would you want to commit to somebody with big money thinking they wouldn't start next year because you're banking on Lance Jackson or whomever or Colton Vasek or even any of these guys, Zeno Yamuzalo. So yeah, it's these. And when I talk about a skill set that I think this staff needs, I think a lot of what we're talking about is where having a scouting department that has a constant running list of the highest rated guys in the country that fit Texas's scheme and needs.
Mm-hmm.
And every year, man, when you go shopping, you don't start on the portal list. You start on your rankings list. And you go down the list. And you make guys give you answers. If guys are happy and they don't want to leave, cool. If there's an opening, if Ryan Williams sees the quarterback play at Alabama this spring and is like, I don't know if any of these dudes can get me the ball 50 times next year. Wait a minute. Texas is calling? I'll take the call.
And Catch, let's look at this chat real quick from Hunter on the defensive side. It says, why go get a Jag? Go offer the best defensive lineman in the country $2 million. That's what you said you do at receiver. Do it everywhere if you want to be the best. Yeah, maybe.
Now, Hunter, the thing that I would say is, like, it ain't my money either.
Right. Now you're talking about, whew.
But what was I told a few months ago by somebody that would know a thing or two about the mindset of what's being thought behind the scenes? They're all in on 2025. And I'll be honest. It's hearing shit like that, Chad, that makes me say things like, I am not yelling, scream in a crowded theater here. We're just having a conversation, but
you're not yelling, scream. That's a weird thing to yell.
Whatever. You know what I meant. Sometimes I got to go Blutarski and you guys just have to let me.
I got you. Okay. Sorry.
But everything's for the now. And it feels like, forget about how they've spent money and how they've used NIL resources up until now. But when we look at the moves that have been made in the offseason, I mean, Dwayne Aquino was not a long-term hire. That was one or two. You start talking about 3 or 4 years from now with Dwayne Aquino, that's
not about covering receivers in 2030.
You're not telling these guys that they're recruiting, really. That, now Dwayne Aquino be here in 2030 for sure.
You can't even guarantee those guys that he's there their whole time.
That's what I'm saying.
Right? Like their whole section.
And look, Sark was okay with that. Sark it's the chosen path. I think, when we look at what Oklahoma did at the move at general manager, that really was not about this season. It was really about future seasons. Seasons, plural. I think Oklahoma really does understand the task in front of it. And I think they realize this is not a one-year fix. Because we're out here recruiting guys from Kennesaw State. And the moment that happens, we're trying to beat Georgia and Texas. And it's funny, I saw this yesterday, Chad. Danny Stutzman there's a helmet on eBay that he signed. Danny Stutzman signs it, and then he wrote Texas fears Oklahoma.
Okay.
And it was like, dude, in the last 3 years, Texas has beat you by a combined 114-37 score. Like, they respect Oklahoma, but we're past the fear stage, right?
Yeah, it's a bold thing to write. And
Some of the last 3 years have been historical beatdowns. I don't know that Texas fears Oklahoma right now. No offense, Danny Stutzman. There is an overrated 2024 season.
Okay, so you're counting in the Oklahoma win as well. You're saying those 3 games added up is the 114.
Correct.
Because the last 2 years is what, 80-something to 3?
Well, no, because they won 2 years ago. The game with Dylan Gabriel.
Oh, that was in 20.
So I'm thinking 49-0, and then it was the Dylan Gabriel game, and then it was this past year's game.
Right. Okay. Sorry. I'm mixing. You're right. I'm mixing them up. Sorry. The two
almost all of the OU points come from the second game in that conversation.
Right. The 24 game. I got you. Or 23 game. Sorry.
Correct.
Yeah. Got you. All right. That now I'm clear on that. But yeah, it's a good point. Thank you for the chat and throwing it in. We've crossed over 1 o'clock. We got buy or sell coming up here in just a minute. Also, let me thank the good folks at Sinus and Snoring Specialists. They're the ones that make sure I sleep well. They're the ones that made sure I stopped snoring, got rid of the sleep apnea, got rid of my allergies. There's all kinds of things that were going on with me, and it's going to be different than what's going on with you. We're into springtime now. If you're still messing with those allergies, maybe it's sinus headaches. Maybe it's just like your sinuses mess with you all the time, weather changing and everything. It can mess with it. So many different things can. Let them know what's going on with you. Let them know what really bothers you. They can test you for all these different allergies at once, like 50 different allergies, no needles involved. The allergy drop treatment, it's so easy to do. You're putting a couple drops under your tongue. You hold it there for, I think it was a minute. You swallow it, you go to bed. That's it. And you do that. And over about a 3-year period, your body develops the defenses and you feel better. It's incredible. Sinus and Snoring Specialist, 601-0303. You can securely call them or text them on that number so you can feel safe there. SinusSnoringENT.com. We're talking over 20, 25 years of experience. I've been saying over 20 years, but by now it's way over that. It's like 25 or more of Dr. Slaughter and what he's been doing. So check him out. Sinus and Snoring Specialist. Feel clear, rested, and healthy. We are right in the middle of a nice, healthy House Divided on this beautiful Wednesday. We do have buy or sell coming up. Catch, anything else we need to hit on this topic that you wanted to mention before we get to buy or sell?
No, I would just say I forgot for the last 30 minutes that I was playing in the $10 hijack tournament.
What do you mean you forgot?
I mean, I forgot.
You were here and you just, what, just hands were going by?
Yes, I missed 30 minutes of game time.
Damn.
I've come back. They're in the middle of a break. We got like a minute left. The blinds are 800, 1600. And
so there's a bunch of people at hijack right now thinking, I'm kicking Jeff Ketchum's ass right now.
They're like, no, he ain't playing any hands. So if they're smart, they're stealing my blinds.
Hijackpoker.com. Get that app, put it on any device you want, and you may end up at a table with Jeff Ketchum, whether he's paying attention or not. Hijackpoker.com.
I'm paying attention now. We're just on a break.
Yeah, okay. He'll be there. Get ready. Jump on in that game. All right, Catch, you ready to buy or sell? You want to go first or second today, sir?
I'll go second today.
All righty. Why don't we start with a little recruiting? Buy or sell number one. You think Texas will sell Ojo on left tackle and hope Turntine will consider right tackle?
I mean, sell.
Okay.
Yeah, Turntine's not a right tackle. He's just not. He's 6'3", 270 right now. So I think that they're just telling him tackle. Look, he knows. He knows it's going to be very hard for he and Felix Ojo to end up in the same class together, and it's not impossible. But so I don't think they're selling him on you can be our next Cameron Williams.
Okay. So they're not going to look. They're not going to look both of those guys in the face and say you can be our left tackle of the future. Just see if they can get them both.
I think they'll say we're not thinking about it in those terms. The best guy plays.
Right. Okay.
Not left, not right. If you're the best guy, you could end up at either. And then knowing that left tackle is eventually where we will put our best lineman.
Yeah. Okay. Fair enough. All right, Catch. History tonight. Buy or sell number two. Luka returns to Dallas. You're going to watch an hour or more.
Oh, sell. I thought that said a minute at first.
Will you watch the intros and see what the crowd does?
No, I don't. I am not into the NBA right now. I mean, I know what's going on. Yeah. I'm aware, and I'm aware of what's going on in the NBA more than the normal person, but I'm just not watching games. Gotcha. I will when the playoffs start, but I don't care about either of those two teams really. So no, I'm not watching.
All right, fair enough. All right, Catch, back to recruiting. Buy or sell number three. You think Mark Bowman, the tight end, will be a big star in college, and it's huge if Texas gets him?
So I'm going to nitpick your word here a little bit. Will is a guarantee of sorts. Mm-hmm. I think Mark Bowman can be a big star in college. Will be is just a guarantee on the box. even I wouldn't necessarily say that about Arch Manning. You always would leave a little bit of, these guys do miss for a litany of different reasons. And sometimes a reason will step up and bite a guy. But if this kid stays healthy and ends up in the right school and situation, he has a chance to be an All-America level tight end.
Gotcha. All right, Catch. It's wacky music trivia time, and if it's on Wikipedia, it must be true. Here we go. Buy or sell number 4. There's an artist with a birthday today that holds the record for the longest number 1 run for a song in the Billboard Hot 100's history. 19 weeks. It was in 2018. You can name the artist.
Oh, man. I know the song.
Oh, I think he's got it.
But the guy hasn't done a lot of material.
Okay.
I mean,
can you name the song?
Oh, as soon as I hear it, I'll be able to sing it because my kids, it was like it was like soccer moms everywhere eventually were singing this song. But Take Me Out of My Misery.
Right.
Just say it.
You sure?
Yeah.
Lil Nas X.
Yeah.
And Old Town Road.
Old Town Road, yeah.
I didn't realize that song. I mean, it was big. I did not realize it held that kind of a record, though. 19 weeks.
Dude, so my kids were
the all-timer. Wow.
5 and 6 years old when that song came out. And they knew the words to it. It was a Kids Bop Kids song.
Yeah.
No, it was huge. It was huge. And yes, and soccer moms, I can remember walking into a Heather's family function during the summer when that song came out.
Mm-hmm.
And it was like 40-something-year-old suburban soccer moms were singing that song. And it was just like, you guys ruined everything, man.
What is going on? Happy 26 to Little Nas X and Catch. 20 years past that. I'm about to make you feel old because Rudy Huxtable is 46. Keisha Knight Pulliam, 46 years old today. She was a better child star than Gary Coleman. Buy or sell?
I'm going to sell. Gary Coleman was a pretty big deal.
Yeah, I think that's the right answer, but I love those two so much. They're two of my favorites. To be as young as they were, to be as captivating as they were, but I agree. I think Gary Coleman, he controlled a little bit more. He did just a little bit more, and when you consider some of the stuff he was dealing with at the time, I'll go with Gary, but happy birthday to Keisha Knight Pulliam. Rudy's 46? That's not right. All right, Catch, your turn. $46. What's that face for?
You know what that face is for.
I can't. Is that face for the sadness that we can't even bring up somebody that was on that show without thinking of that?
No, I've already forgotten that. That was hijack related.
Oh, that was a hijack face. My bad. The hijack face.
I flopped a straight flush draw and hit top pair, and a guy put me all in, and he caught 2 pair on the turn, and then the card that gave me, for a second, I thought a straight flush, but it gave me the flush, gave him a full house.
Oh,
so he went runner, full house, and just I'm licking my wounds metaphorically right now in my brain.
You're a better man than I. You had no idea, but I could have been talking about anybody at that point.
No, I literally don't remember. That was a Gary Coleman question.
Right. I could have.
What would I have been thinking about? Plato? Dana?
Yeah. No. I thought you were making a connection between Keisha and like Bill. I thought you were making it. I thought it was a Bill thing, but no, I was wrong.
Oh man, just for the record, I watched that Eddie Murphy Raw routine this past week.
So good.
It has not. It is actually aged better. It's the rare comedy that almost 40 years later, that bit is funnier today than it was when it came out, and it was hilarious when it came out.
Yeah, it is the best bottle of wine to never drink. You just leave it in there, and it just gets more and more valuable. You're right. Every time I see it, I just laugh more now. You're right. It just keeps getting better.
Tell Bill I said.
You cannot say. Oh, my
Filth.
God.
Flying filth.
Flying filth.
All right, buy or sell number 1. Texas will sign a running back in the portal in the next few weeks.
You know what? I'm going to sell this. I'm going to sell and go back to Sark's belief in CJ Baxter. We talked about it for multiple years now. And something tells me they're not going to make a move there. Something tells me he said it out loud yesterday. Wide receiver, tight end, D-line. I think if he was going after a running back, I think he might have said it.
Just threw up in my mouth a little bit. But buy or sell number 2, one of the Texas wide receivers that come through the portal this spring will be a bad mamma jamma, no doubt about it, surefire starter. Everybody will recognize it as soon as his name enters the portal and commits to Texas.
I'm going to say buy. I think this is a different animal than we've seen in the past. And maybe it's, I don't know if it's West Coast specifically because we talked about him, but I think it's a name people will know like that. They'll know the talent, and Texas fans will embrace it because they know who they are. They know who their quarterback is, and it's just going to notch everything up. It's like adding that badass bat to your lineup. I think that's what Texas is going to do. 1 for sure. I'm not sure if they're even going to 2, but there will be one that has that feel.
Buy or sell number 3, Mel Kiper Jr. came out with his final mock draft. So that's where we are in the draft process. Mel has come out with mock draft 4.0. It's the last one before draft night.
Okay.
Buy or sell, Quinn Ewers doesn't go in the first 2 rounds in Mel's mock draft and isn't among the first 5 quarterbacks selected. And you think, yeah, that's how it'll unfold over the course of the draft. So ultimately, no top 2 rounds at number 6 or later in terms of positioning of quarterbacks taken.
I think I'm going to take advantage of a detail. I'll say sell, not about the second round thing. I'll say sell and say he's the 5th guy off the board. I'll say he sneaks into that top 5.
Melrose seems that he's invited to the draft.
Catch, here's the question I asked on Modcast. I'm going to ask it of you. If you were trying to figure out, like, either can he be our backup or maybe he could be a guy that, maybe he could be a little better than that, and you were trying to decide between Shuck and Quinn, what would you do? Is it clear in your mind? Are they really close? Like, I'm just trying to understand. Like, I'm not absolutely certain Quinn's a stud in the NFL, but I have not been that impressed with Shuck. But maybe I'm missing something. What would you do?
I wouldn't draft either of them.
Okay.
I mean, I don't know what Shuck is. I don't know what he is. He's been a mediocre college player. He's got good tools. The knock on him is that, like, he's been playing with poor talent. So
right.
The best of him hasn't been seen. And then if you put him on Texas and Quinn Ewers on Louisville, that Quinn Ewers looks terrible and he looks great.
Yeah.
So
that's a dangerous game to play headed towards the NFL.
If you force me to take one of the 2, I would take Quinn because I think I would always want to lean in on long-term belief of pedigree that exists. I mean, whatever we say of Quinn, he was a big-time prospect. He's been in the playoffs a couple of times. He's played in big games. I do want my quarterbacks to have that experience. I don't want them to get to the NFL. And what's the biggest game you played in? Kentucky. Oh, okay.
Right. And then he tries to explain how big a rivalry it is.
Exactly.
Yeah. Right.
So the one thing you would say about Quinn is that he won't be stranger to NFL talent, that he's used to being at a program where there are NFL guys everywhere. And especially at defensive back. So I think that personally I'm shocked. I thought Quinn would have a better pre-draft process.
Me too.
I thought he would be a buzz name and that the conversation would be that Quinn's going to go high. And I thought the conversation would be, is he going too high? Is he as good as this draft position? And weirdly, and maybe it doesn't play out this way. It only takes one team to make all of this a moot point. But man, I just, when you look at mock drafts and stuff like that, he's not a hot name. He's not a hot topic. He's not in the top 5. In fact, you know who the guy is? It's turned into who I thought Quinn would be is Jalen Milroe.
Milroe, yeah.
Milroe's invited to the draft.
Right.
They don't do that unless they have like a really firm idea that guy legitimately could go in the first round.
Yep. And
they don't send invites to guys who are not likely to be in the first round. That's just not what they do.
Yep, he did, and he did it with the weapon of his feet. And so far, Quinn has not shown the NFL one weapon that they like that much. That's just as much as they like Milroe's feet.
I'll tell you what, though. I think I'd rather have Jalen Milroe than Shedeur Sanders.
You might be right about that.
Because if Milroe could, Milroe is Jalen Hurts 2.0.
I was just thinking about those two guys. I thought the same thing just now. Like that's your argument for Milroe. You just turn to Jalen Hurts and go, not just because of the school, not just because they both played for that school, but that skill set. You've watched it become really successful, and now you've watched it win the whole damn thing.
Because Milroe's not incapable as a passer. Like, that's not it at all.
No.
He's wildly inconsistent. But you know who else is wildly inconsistent? Quinn.
Yes. Right.
Honestly, both of their problems are the same. They're incredibly sloppy in their mechanics. Mm-hmm. Quinn rarely repeats any arm angle or motion or footwork. It's all every play is like a goulash of feet and arm movement and stuff. And Jalen's kind of the same way. So both those guys will be looked at by NFL teams. And the thought will be, can we harness him and improve his mistakes? Because if we can, then what do we have? And I think Jalen Milroe, of all the quarterbacks in this draft outside of Cam Ward, to me looks like a guy who could be a star if you could fix that little passing consistency thing.
Yeah, if you could fix that throwing issue.
But you know what? Jalen Hurts was able to do that at Oklahoma. And I think that the argument for Jalen Milroe will be he hasn't worked with a Lincoln Riley or then beyond level. And he went through a coaching change last year. So whoever he signs with this year, it'll be his third offensive coordinator in 3 years. And if that were Quinn, we'd point it out. But because it's a guy at Alabama, because we did forever, it was like, oh my God, how many defensive coordinators have they played for? We kept score. And, I think with Hurts, it's something that and they changed offensive coordinators even before the Saban coaching change because you had the Bill O'Brien thing. And so he's a guy, God, if I'm not mistaken, has seen maybe 3 offensive coordinators at Alabama. So
yeah, you're right.
There are some mitigating circumstances trust me, if Arch were going through his third offensive coordinator in 3 years, it would be the story of this spring.
Yep. It's fair. All right.
Buy or sell. We're at 4. Buy or sell number 4. Virgil van Dijk and Mo Salah are reportedly going to renew their contracts at Liverpool. And that on a scale of 1 to 10, that makes me a 10 on the happiness scale.
Well, it's got to be. Even I know Salah's name. I don't know the other guy's name, but I'm going to say that's a 10. That's a buy. I'm going to say that puts you at a 10 of excitement.
Hold on. Let's see if I can. How do I do it? Where do I?
Whoa, hell.
See that guy kissing the trophy?
Guy kissing the trophy, yes.
That is Virgil van Dijk.
Okay, so you have a painting of this person, so you're definitely at a 10. You're at a 10 plus.
I've got Mo painting over there, but it's on the ground right now, and you can see it. It's like right there. It's just not facing the thing. So
right, you're good. Yeah, okay, you're at a 10. You're
that report has come out while we've been on the air, and so I haven't had a chance to celebrate yet. But yay!
Did it counteract your hijack poker? That one hand loss? It didn't counteract.
Yes, it did. But I have to admit, the low of the thing about hijack is a cards. When you play in person, you get more time to wallow in your self-pity.
Right, because someone has to physically deal those cards.
And it doesn't happen in a matter of 2 seconds. And then you get to do your walk of shame away from the table.
Yeah.
But when you're playing hijack, it's over in the blink of an eye. You can't even go to the chat and talk shit to somebody if you want to because they kick you out. So like you lose, you're out, boom, you're gone. And you're like, no, I want to go tell that guy he's an asshole, but like you can't.
The good and the bad of hijackpoker.com.
And finally, buy or sell number 5, number 1 movie in America, Minecraft, like $170 million opening weekend. It is the movie event of the year, but your daughter, a little too old, and so are you. This will be one you don't see in the theaters, but 10 years ago you would.
That is a definite buy. My child gets visibly mad every time she sees a preview. At one point in her life, she cared about Minecraft, but something about the ingredients of that movie really makes her mad. Yeah, there's no chance. It's a buy. There is no chance we're seeing that movie.
And that's how we play buy or sell, kids.
That's it.
But I think I will probably end up going and seeing that movie in the next few days.
I was going to ask, are your kids, I mean, your kids are younger than mine, so are your kids right in that area where they're really into it?
Oh, yeah. Certainly my son, Hendrix, absolutely.
He's all into Minecraft? Okay.
Yeah.
And I'm assuming like those two guys, the two main guys, Jack Black and Momoa, from what I've seen of the previews, like it feels like they're going to really lean into it. They're both good at that. They're both good at being funny. And if that's sort of the point of that movie, I don't know anything about Minecraft in terms of what tone you're supposed to set, serious movie, comedic movie, or whatever, but looks like it'll be fairly entertaining. And sounds like it had a big opening, so that's good. But yeah, I will not be contributing to that one. All right, there's buy or sell. I think we're just about done. Anything else, Catch?
Nope, that's it.
Thank you all for liking and subscribing and getting your notifications. Like on the way out. If you didn't like it on the way in, we appreciate you for that. Football with Friends coming at 6 o'clock, 8:30 tonight for the Outsiders, talking about Longhorns at the Masters. Scotty Scheffler going for some serious history. Also, Chance Mock with his 5 favorite items that he would put on the dinner list if he were the champ at the Masters. What would Chance Mock serve if he won the Masters and you came back next year?
That's a great question.
He will let you know tonight. I've not had any advance notice of what Chance is going to say. So that's the Mock 5 Top 5 tonight. Check it out at 8:30 and Old Fashioned tomorrow morning at 9 o'clock. And we'll be back tomorrow at noon for another House Divided. Y'all take care of yourselves. Thank you for your support. And oh, by the way, that QR code in the lower left there, it's the easiest way to get signed up for orangebloods.com and all the incredible content that is there, including that war room, which is coming up on Thursday night. We are a week away from the portal opening up.
Truth and Lies tomorrow too, baby.
Truth and Lies is coming up. If you haven't checked out the Rumor Mill, Jason's 321 is out there. Every Sunday, this guy brings you 10 thoughts from the weekend. It's pretty much, the OG gangster of orangebloods.com.
I'm always so proud of that article, Chad. Like, I don't think people realize what goes into it. That
I read it. Hey, I check it out every week. And have been for a long, long time.
I've been doing that column for about 18, 19, 20 years, something like that. And that I every week feel like I come up with something, a new angle that hasn't been done before. It's my pride and joy.
Yeah, y'all check it out. And again, that QR code will get you to orangebloods.com really quickly, get you all signed up. Thanks again for your support. This is House Divided. We are Orange Bloods Live.